They were challenged along the way. Kevin Durant and the Nets took Milwaukee to 7 games, but fell short in overtime. Despite the loss, KD spoke highly of the Bucks' future. Take a listen.
To see a couple of friends become champions today was cool. That experience doesn't happen for just anybody. So you respect those guys that have been through that journey. Milwaukee forming somewhat of a dynasty with that team. I know it's the first chip, and I know a lot of people call you a dynasty after a few, but the continuity of that team is something that's impressive. And how they continue to keep building and adding, and now they're champions now, so you can appreciate that.
Slick Rick is back with us, but Marcellus, do you agree with KD that the Bucks are a dynasty?
No, and KD doesn't agree with KD. That's
Wait a second, Sal.
Huh?
Wait a second.
Uh-oh.
Because
what?
just yesterday,
what?
Giannis said that KD was the MVP in a prior time.
Yeah.
And you said that Giannis could not be lying. Now today, KD is giving praise to Giannis, and you're going to tell me that KD is a liar?
Oh, I wish it was that simple. But KD, in his own statement, if you listen to all of it, he said, I know a lot of people going to say, well, they ain't won two, so they're not a dynasty. Well, KD, you're right. That's the definition of beginning a dynasty. When Giannis said KD was the best, he said, that's it, next question. There was nothing else to talk about. So there wasn't this U-turn of logic that we just heard from KD. So they're not the same. Oh, KD. He had that bacon neck shirt on, too. Well, KD was sitting there chilling. He's an Olympian right now, y'all. This is a U.S. ambassador talking, not KD, the basketball player. This is a polo with the America colors, hand over heart. KD trying to export America's greatness and say, yeah, the Milwaukee Bucks, who just won a championship in our borders of America. Oh, they look great. They look somewhat dynastic. What, you half pregnant now? Ain't no such thing as somewhat dynastic. Either you're a dynasty or you're not a dynasty. And, of course, we know that they're not a dynasty. Not just because of the simple definition of, well, you only have one. So one is not enough to even be in that conversation. But two, because of the way that they won that one. We're having two different conversations within America's borders about our champion Milwaukee Bucks. One conversation is give them their flowers. And everyone's like, yeah, you're right, props. They endured. They wore the war of attrition. They won the war of attrition. Congratulations. And then there's another conversation being had like, but they only won because. And that's the conversation I tune into as well. Because, if KD's Brooklyn Nets were Brooklyn Nets instead of Brooklyn Net, that would have been a different series. We wouldn't be in this conversation. We wouldn't be talking about somewhat of a dynasty. We could really say what it truly is. So, hey, KD, do what you're doing best right now. Export American culture. Tell the world how great America is. But you ain't got a lie to kick it.
KD's not lying, and I co-sign with KD completely because he said they are somewhat of a dynasty. And KD knows a lot of things. Well, not a lot of things. He knows some things better than anybody on this earth. Number one, how to play basketball. He knows how to play basketball better than just about anybody on the earth. He knows how to fire up people on Twitter just about better than anybody on the earth. And he knows what being a part of somewhat of a dynasty is better than anybody on earth because he joined the Warriors when they were somewhat of a dynasty. 73-win team. They had won one of the last 2 chips. Then he was a part of somewhat of a dynasty. He won 2 titles in 3 years. All of the while, his teammates Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, they were a part of a dynasty. So Kevin Durant joined somewhat of a dynasty. He left somewhat of a dynasty, and he played with players that were a part of a dynasty. So if KD says that the Bucks are about to be or are somewhat of a dynasty, KD knows that better than anybody, including you or I on this desk. The reason they are a dynasty in the making. To be dynastic, you have to be the best or one of the best. The Bucks have the best record over the last 3 years. To be dynastic, you have to win a title, but you got to win titles in all reality. And the Bucks just won 1 title. To be a dynasty, you got to win, what, 3 out of 4 years? 3 out of 5 years? Well, the Bucks are 33% of the way there. He didn't say they were a dynasty. He said they were somewhat of a dynasty. Sal, you know how it is.
Yeah, no, I don't.
If you went to a restaurant and they ask, hey, you hungry? Yeah, somewhat.
Why am I here, fool?
You kind of hungry. I don't mean you fully hungry.
No.
I mean you kind of hungry.
No, I need some Levi's. Yeah, I'm hungry. Well, I'm at a restaurant.
The Bucks are somewhat of a dynasty.
Hey, man, stop that.
Oh, goodness. Acho, you keep doing this. You keep coming up with a definition that is all of your own making and then going ahead and creating this premise that it's right. You just define dynasty in a way that I don't know that anybody has ever defined dynasty before.
How would you define dynasty,
Most
sir?
wins over 3 years?
How would you define dynasty, sir? Let's all get on the same playing field. How do we define dynasty?
It ain't that.
Let me give you an example of why your watered down definition of dynasty
Going through it. How do you define dynasty? How do you find dynasty?
Process. Get him, Slick.
Minimum 2 championships.
Minimum. Thank you.
Minimum 3 trips to the NBA Finals.
Okay, so
you have to dominate and be capable of winning a championship.
And you've won 1 chip, then you are somewhat of a dynasty.
Okay, well, somebody.
It's
Okay,
50%.
so Emmy, here's the other part. You guys just killed me a day ago for half-stepping on whether Giannis was the best player in the league, right?
There.
Right?
Yes, sir.
And here we got KD going, they're forming somewhat of a dynasty. Hey, KD, say it with your chest or don't say it at all. Don't use the word, don't use the D word, okay? Go someplace else.
Some D's on that.
But here's the thing. If the Bucks are forming somewhat of a dynasty, then the 2000 Pistons were without question a dynasty because they had 8 consecutive playoff appearances. They made 6 consecutive trips to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they won a ring. If the Bucks are forming somewhat of a dynasty, then the Toronto Raptors that we just saw go through a run, they were dynastic because they won a ring. They made 7 consecutive playoff appearances, and they went to 2 Eastern Conference Finals. So I just gave you... Oh, and by the way, the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Golden State Warriors were dynastic at the same time because they both won rings and they both made multiple trips to the finals. How can you have 2 teams, 2 dynasties at the same time? You can't. So by your definition, Acho...
Ooh.
Dynasties were given out like paper clips. I mean, it doesn't mean
Y'all ever
anything.
heard that some things are just sounding smart to dumb people? And this is one of them. Like, somewhat of a dynasty sounds smart to dumb people, but it's not.
So Kevin Durant's dumb?
No, he just said something that's dumb, and you ain't got to be a dummy to say something that's dumb, because I'm about to do it right now. Merriam-Webster's. Look out, because here comes Manuel Acho's dictionary, yes, where he'll define it, and he'll make you think it's reality. All right, so somewhat of a dynasty we're going to now accept as vernacular, as something that we're going to respect. Interesting. Come here, Shonda. Come here, girl. Don't you got something to tell everybody? You ever seen this scene? What? I don't want to tell him, Mama. Tell him. And then the little brother says, well, she kind of pregnant. Nah, that ain't how it goes. You know why? Ain't no such thing as she kind of pregnant. Ain't no such thing as somewhat of a dynasty. Either she is or she ain't. Either this is a dynasty or it's not. This somewhat, this building, you win 1 chip and y'all stuck together, and y'all didn't even stick together. Drew Holiday wasn't there 2 years ago. Drew Holiday wasn't there a year ago. When you talk about these 3 regular season wins, the most in the NBA over the last 3 years, that's not this team that just won this championship. Oh, so Drew Holiday sitting there like, well, I wasn't part of that. So what am I a part of? 1 ring. So now that's the definition of a dynasty? I blame Giannis. I blame Giannis because Giannis is the one who deserves his flowers. 1 dozen, that's it, not 13. 1 dozen of flowers, send them to Giannis for sticking it out and becoming a champion. But can he stop with the attempts to saying not only am I a champion, but I'm a better champion? Like his ice on his ring is colder than all the other rings given out year in, year out. Because there's going to be another ring given out next year. And I'm willing to say that if teams stay healthy, which they probably will, because no team can get as injured as they were this year, like the Brooklyn Nets, he ain't going to be able to say rings. He's going to say ring. Now, is this still a dynasty? Is this still a dynastic conversation? Not at all. So I'm not riding with this. I'm going to wait till it really materializes instead of being premature to that conversation.
Here's the problem. The problem is that you and Slick are both exactly right, and that's problematic for only one reason. Define dynasty. until you all, us three, can get on the same page of what a dynasty is, and the whole conversation's irrelevant. Because dynasty is defined as a group or family that maintains its position for a considerable amount of time. What's considerable? That's subject. What Slick Rick thinks is considerable, what you think is considerable, what I think is considerable is subject. So unless somebody says that a dynasty is 5 chips in 6 years, 3 chips in 4 years, we all just sitting here talking. So if a dynasty is 2 chips, then Giannis is halfway to 2 chips. I don't really think a dynasty is 2 chips, because I don't think KD's Warriors, his 3 years and 2 chips, was a dynasty. But Slick might think something different, and Sel might think something different. So if a dynasty is only 2, then they are part of a dynasty. Now, it just comes down to be pregnant, you know what that means. So you can't be somewhat pregnant. But if you don't know what a dynasty is, you can be somewhat of a dynasty.